Hello, my name's Guy West. I'm here for my World History 375 Korean and Vietnam Wars, doing my history oral interview. This is for fall semester 2019, and this is for Professor Herbert Piper. Once again, my name's Guy West, and with us today we've got a Vietnam veteran, Mr. Glenn Tarr. Uh, and with that, we'll go ahead and get into the interview. How you doing, Mr. Tarr?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
All right. Can you tell us your rank, branch of service, unit, and what years you served?
I'm retired Air Force. I was retired as a Master Sergeant. Uh, we don't really have. I had many jobs in the Air Force, so
Uh-huh.
we don't really have.
Okay.
We don't have really specific.
Served with different units?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't even remember the one that I served in Vietnam with.
Oh,
It's been so long ago.
oh wow. So you said you retired from the service. So what years were you in?
I went in 1968. I mean, actually, I went in 1967, and I went to Vietnam in '68,
Mm-hmm.
November of '68.
Okay.
I was over there right in the middle of Tet.
Okay. Oh, wow. And I'm going to kind of get into some of the stuff you mentioned that you had many different jobs in the Air Force. Before we get into that, what circumstances led you to join the military?
Well, to be frank with you, I got my draft notice that I didn't want to go in the Army, so I went down and
Okay.
tested for the Air Force.
Okay. Okay. So your hand was kind of forced in that matter.
Yeah, well, I probably would have went eventually, but I had a good job at that time,
Okay.
so I was working on the aerospace industry, working on the Apollo spaceships,
Uh-huh.
stuff like that.
What?
Saturn V.
Now you said you retired. Did you do a full 20 years, or were you medically
22 plus years.
22 plus years? Oh wow! So you must have been to many different places as well. Um, well, when you said you were drafted in, can you tell us a little bit about your boot camp experience and any of the training you received prior to Vietnam?
Boot camp was an experience because I was supposed to go to Lackland down in San Antonio,
Yes, sir.
but they had a spinal meningitis breakout there.
Oh wow.
So they diverted all their training up to Amarillo, to the old base that was there in Amarillo.
Uh huh.
And we were all in old broken down World War II barracks. And, it was quite an experience. And then from there, I went in, my first job was crew chief on fighter aircraft. So I went to tech school over at Wichita Falls. And from there, I went to George Air Force Base. That's where I started my career working on F-4s.
Okay.
And from there,
Is that the Phantoms?
yeah,
Okay.
F-4 Phantom.
Beautiful aircraft.
Mm-hmm. And just a little side note: if you compare them side by side with the B-25,
Mm-hmm.
they're identical in size almost.
Oh really?
That's how big the Phantom was.
Oh, they're
and how
huge.
small the 24 was.
Yeah.
Even though it was considered a medium bomber.
I've been up close to an F4. They're a pretty big aircraft.
The F-4 actually, if I recall right, the F-4 can carry more ordnance than the B-24 did.
I wouldn't doubt it. That thing's a pretty hefty aircraft. One of the fastest aircraft ever built, if I remember correctly,
Well,
too.
I think it was the first ones that went Mach 1 or Mach 2
Yeah, it's very fast
that we
aircraft.
had in the inventory.
Okay, so after you received your training, you were a crew chief for the F4s, and you said you deployed to Vietnam in '68. Is that correct?
Right, in November of '68.
And what area of Vietnam did you?
I was at Cam Ranh Bay, which
Okay.
is about mid between the bottom part of South Vietnam and Da Nang. It's
Okay.
right on the coast.
Okay.
There's a big bay there.
Okay.
When we left there, they turned it over to the Russians. The Russians turned it into an Air Force base.
Turned it over to the Russians, huh? After the North Vietnamese.
After we left, yeah.
Okay. Um, so when you were in Vietnam, what you said you don't remember the unit you were with though earlier, right?
No, I had to go all through my records. So I didn't keep track of it.
That's fine, understood. Um, But do you remember what your unit's mission was while you were there in Vietnam?
Just the normal fighter bomber operations all over North and South Vietnam.
Okay.
Whenever they were flying.
Okay.
There was also a Army replacement battalion that was attached to the base, so we had Army troops there all the time
Okay.
coming in, and there was a small contingent of Navy guys that ran the docks
Okay.
on that base side.
Okay. Well, that kind of precludes my next question, so I'll go on to the next ones. While you were in Vietnam, did you have any thoughts on how the war was being ran from higher headquarters?
I had a lot of thoughts on that.
Do you mind telling us about some of those?
In my opinion, that Vietnam, well, actually, it probably started in Korea. We no longer fought wars to win wars. It was more of a political gesture why we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And I fully believe that Johnson screwed the military.
Why is that?
Just with his policies and stuff, you know, you couldn't shoot, unless you're shot at, and all this other kind of stuff that was going on over there.
Mm-hmm.
I just believe, even though he was commander in chief, and we have the Pentagon and all that involved, and you know, it was all political.
Yes.
You know, it was even though I was proud to have been there and I'm proud to serve my entire career in the military, it just got to where the generals weren't allowed to do their jobs.
Yes, sir.
And when they tried to do their jobs, then they were disciplined, or they, you know, Congress and the president jumped in and, oh no, we can't do this because this will happen, or this election's coming up, or this or that or the other thing.
So, if I can interpret that right, politicians were more worried about their careers and what it looked like was happening than actually protecting American lives and doing the right thing.
That's my, you know, it didn't seem that the reason for being there and the reality of why we were being there were two different things.
Okay. And I'm going to interject just a little bit of my own experience. I just recently retired from the Marine Corps, so I've seen a little bit of that myself, so I completely understand where you're coming from on that one. While you're in Vietnam, or just in the Vietnam era in general, do you recall any particular humorous or unusual event that you remember?
Well, there's a couple of them. One, that's when I found out that I was nearsighted.
Okay.
Because there was a mountain just on one end of the base that the road led down to the one side led down to the ammo dump, the other side went down to the South China Sea where we used to go swim and stuff.
Okay.
But that mountain was loaded with landmines, and I never saw the signs even when I walked up there.
Oh wow!
Until I got glasses, and then I saw the signs. Whether you would call that humorous or not, I don't know.
So you had been walking in that area the whole time?
I hadn't been off in where the mines were, but there's a road that paralleled that hillside, and the signs were there say "Stay out," that this is a minefield. You know, and I didn't really pay attention until I got my glasses on. So
did you continue?
It's a good thing they didn't go over in that area.
Okay, I guess it is. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I'm not going to backtrack a little bit because there's another question I had in here that I meant to ask about when we were talking about your thoughts on how the war was being run. Because what you said of how politicians were kind of running the war more for their own political gain or to protect their legacy, whatever, what have you, do you believe that affected the morale in your unit? And if it didn't, what was the overall morale in your unit?
I think the only time that it affected us is when, you know, whenever they had canceled planned campaigns or whatever you want to call them, or missions for political reasons. Oh, we don't want to bomb this particular area. We don't want to do that. And I think that probably affected the pilots the most because, you know, they wanted to get off and do what they were trained to do. And they were grounded basically. Just, don't go here, don't go there. And it's like you see in the movies, a lot of the movies on various uh, wars that we've had over the years that we were involved in. Oh no, you can't do that. We can't do this. Don't do that. You know, don't load your gun until you fired at, and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of the mentality. And I think it affected the pilots the most, and probably the Army guys who were there too. Because we didn't. The only time we got out on the field is when we got attacked,
Mm-hmm.
and then I was on a unit that went out and measured bomb craters or mortar craters or whatever happened to hit us at the base.
Mm-hmm.
In lieu of sitting in a bunker all night long on the wall, the perimeter of the base.
Yes, sir.
So
it was a little bit of an effect, but not a huge effect.
I don't think so much for the Air Force as it was probably for the ground troops.
Okay. Do you recall the day that you left Vietnam?
No, not really.
No.
I recall when I got back and got spit on, but
okay. Well, I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but
to me, I think it was a disgrace that our country treated us like that.
Yeah.
We didn't go there
Mm-hmm.
by choice. We were sent there by our government.
Yes, sir. And I'm assuming it was civilians in the airports or something like that.
In the airports or wherever they happened to be demonstrating, because I had my uniform on, they thought they needed to spit on me.
No.
And I know a lot of people in the Army that happened to.
No.
I don't know many in the Marines that happened to, but especially the Army.
Really, it's a sad chapter in our history out of how the American public treated our veterans. I feel for you, but I thank you for your service, though, too.
Well, thank you.
I mean, because of what you guys went through, get a little emotional here. When we got back, we didn't have to put up with that.
Yeah, you guys got a rewarded program when you came back, if you came back from the Gulf.
Thank you. Appreciate that. What'd you do after you left the service?
I went in, I worked for the Sheriff's Department as a forensic technician for 14 years until they medically retired me.
How'd you get into that?
I just volunteered for it. There was an ad, I had just retired. It took me about 9 months to get in, but I guess partly because I had my military record.
Okay.
I got a little extra points for that, but it ended up being when I did the interview, one of the sergeants asked me if I'd ever witnessed an autopsy, and I told him no. And he asked me how I would handle that, and I says, I don't know. I've never done it before, but I'm willing to try. And I was the one that got picked to be hired. So
okay. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Probably. A lot of people would call me ultra patriotic because I believe in supporting the military.
Yes, sir.
No matter how you feel about the military, to me it's an evil necessity, if you want to call it that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we didn't have a military, we wouldn't have what we have today in this country, and to me that's sliding away because people are ignoring the fact that the people that were in the military provided them the freedoms that they have.
Yes, sir.
Regardless of what war it was, from the Revolutionary War on up.
Yes, sir.
War is not a good thing, and I don't know any military people that actually tell you that they'll enjoy being in war.
No, not at all. Okay.
But the civilian population of our country seem to think the other ways. And I think that's wrong.
Yep.
And to politicize any of that stuff, to me, is doing the country a disservice.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I understood that. Is there anything else you want to add just to say?
No, not really.
No. Well, Mr. Tarr, I appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This concludes our interview. Thank you.